The merchant species. The greatest market in the galaxy. The Grand Bazaar of Zentera Prime was the largest trading hub in known space. Thousands of species came here to buy and sell everything imaginable. Rare metals from dying stars. Technology from ancient civilizations. Art that could make you weep or laugh or forget your own name. The bazaar floated in the void between three star systems, a massive station built over 10,000 years by the Merchant Guild. Ambassador Carey stood at the observation deck and watched ships arrive and depart. His species, the Valorians, had ruled this sector for 2 millennia. They were warriors, conquerors, and collectors. When they saw something they wanted, they took it. The Merchant Guild tolerated them because the Valorians spent well and fought better. Today, Carey's was watching a particular ship. It was human-made, ugly by galactic standards. Boxy and functional with none of the elegant curves that other species preferred. The ship's name was painted on its hull in simple letters, Wandering Hope. Still observing the humans, Ambassador asked his aide, a young Valerian named Thex. Carey's nodded. They fascinate me. 40 years they've been trading in the bazaar. 40 years of buying and selling, never causing trouble, never making demands. Just commerce. Thex laughed. They're merchants, Ambassador. That's all they are. They have no military to speak of. No territory worth mentioning. They simply move goods from one place to another and make a profit. And yet, Carey said thoughtfully, they've become the richest species in 3 sectors. This was true. Human traders had spread across the galaxy like a slow wave. They went to places other species avoided. They made deals with civilizations others ignored. They learned languages, studied cultures, and always, they were fair in their transactions. The galaxy had come to depend on human merchants. If you needed something rare, you asked a human trader. If you wanted a fair price, you dealt with a human. If you required discretion, humans kept secrets better than anyone. Wealth without power is meaningless, Thex said dismissively. They may have credits, but they have no strength. No fleet. No warriors. Just cargo ships and trade goods. Carey's wasn't so sure. Something about the humans bothered him. They were too calm. Too patient. They watched everything and said little. Whenever disputes arose in the bazaar, humans stayed neutral. When wars broke out between species, humans traded with both sides. They seemed to have no ambition beyond profit. But Carey's had lived a long time. He had seen many species rise and fall. And he knew that sometimes the most dangerous ones were the ones nobody feared. The Valerian demand. 3 months later, everything changed. The Valerian Empire had decided to expand. They wanted control of the outer trade routes, a network of hyperspace lanes that connected dozens of systems. These routes were officially neutral territory, protected by ancient treaties. But the Valorians didn't care about ancient treaties. High Commander Vex addressed the Merchant Guild Council with typical Valerian bluntness. The outer routes will now fall under Valerian protection. We will ensure security and order. In exchange, all trade through these routes will be taxed. 20% of cargo value. The council chamber erupted in protest. 20% was robbery. The outer routes were the lifeblood of galactic commerce. Thousands of species depended on them. This violates the Treaty of Stars, protested Councillor Myrn, a crystalline being whose species had helped write those original treaties. The routes are neutral space. No single power can claim them. Vex smiled, showing teeth designed for tearing flesh. Treaties are words on old documents. We have 300 warships positioned along the routes. Our words are backed by force. Your words are backed by nothing. He looked around the chamber at the assembled representatives. You have 1 standard month to accept our terms. After that, any ship entering the routes without paying our tax will be seized. Any species that resists will face the consequences. The meeting dissolved into chaos. Species argued, threatened, and made deals with each other. Some immediately agreed to pay the tax. Others vowed resistance but had no means to enforce it. In the back of the chamber, the human representative sat quietly. Her name was Sarah Kim, and she was known throughout the bazaar as one of the fairest traders humanity had produced. She listened to everything. Took notes. Said nothing. When the meeting finally ended and most representatives had left, Carries approached her. "You didn't speak, Ambassador Kim." Sarah looked up at him with calm brown eyes. "I had nothing to say yet. The Valorians are seizing the trade routes. This will affect human commerce more than any other species. Your traders use those routes constantly." "Yes," Sarah agreed. "We do." "And you're not concerned?" Sarah was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Commander Vex assumes that words backed by force are stronger than words backed by nothing. He's wrong. The strongest words are the ones backed by preparation." Carries felt a chill run through him. "What have the humans prepared?" Sarah stood and gathered her things. 40 years, Ambassador. For 40 years, we've been trading. Learning. Mapping. Building relationships. Making friends. Earning trust." She looked at him directly. "The galaxy thinks we're just merchants. That's what we wanted them to think." She walked toward the exit, then paused. "Tell me, Ambassador. In all your observations of human ships, did you ever notice what we carry in our cargo holds?" "Trade goods," Carrie said automatically. "Materials, technology, art, whatever you're buying and selling." "Sometimes," Sarah said with a small smile. "But not always. And certainly not for the past 10 years. She left before he could ask more questions. The warning nobody heeded. The Valerian deadline approached. Most species had agreed to the tax, grumbling but helpless. A few brave civilizations formed a coalition to resist, but they had only a handful of warships between them. Against 300 Valerian vessels, they had no chance. Human traders continued their work as if nothing had changed. Their ships moved through the bazaar, loading and unloading cargo. They conducted business with their usual efficiency. They smiled and negotiated and made deals. But Carries noticed small changes. Human ships that normally stayed in the bazaar for days now stayed for only hours. Human traders who usually worked alone now traveled in groups. And most tellingly, human cargo vessels began avoiding the outer routes entirely, taking longer, more expensive paths to their destinations. 3 days before the deadline, Carries received a private message from Sarah Kim. It simply said, "If you value your empire, convince Vex to withdraw." He brought this message to the High Commander. Vex read it and laughed. "Is this a threat? From merchants? From a species with no military?" He crumpled the message. "Let them try to oppose us. We'll add their cargo ships to our spoils." "I think they're serious," Carries said carefully. The humans have been making money," Vex interrupted. "That's all they know how to do. Making money and staying out of the way while real powers shape the galaxy." He leaned forward. "In 3 days, we take control of the outer routes. If any human ship attempts to pass without paying, we'll destroy it. That will teach them their place." Carries left the meeting feeling deeply uneasy. He had spent decades studying species throughout the galaxy. He had learned to read subtle signs, small behaviors that revealed deeper truths. And everything about the humans suggested they were not what they appeared to be. But he had no proof. Just instinct. And instinct wasn't enough to stop a war. The day the routes closed. When the deadline arrived, 300 Valerian warships took up positions along the outer trade routes. They formed blockades at every major hyperspace junction. Any ship wanting to pass would have to stop, submit to inspection, and pay the tax. High Commander Vex stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Victory, and watched the first merchant vessels approach. They were from various species, Triloxians, Bendari, even some Valerian commercial interests. One by one, they stopped, paid the tax, and continued. You see? Dex said to his officers. The galaxy bends to strength. They complain, they protest, but in the end, they all submit. Then the sensors detected a new arrival. 20 ships, all human, emerging from hyperspace at the edge of the routes. They're not slowing down, reported the tactical officer. Dex smiled. Finally. Someone wants to make an example of themselves. He opened a communication channel. Human vessels, this is High Commander Vex of the Valerian Empire. You are approaching restricted space. Stop your ships immediately and prepare to pay passage tax. The human ships continued forward. I said stop. Vex commanded. This is your final warning. A response came. It was Sarah Kim's voice, calm and clear. Commander Vex, we decline to pay your tax. The outer routes are neutral space. We will continue using them as we always have. Vex felt anger surge through him. You dare defy the Valerian Empire? With 20 cargo ships? These aren't cargo ships, Sarah replied. Before Vex could process those words, the 20 human vessels transformed. Panels along their hulls slid open, revealing weapon arrays that shouldn't exist. Their engines blazed with power that cargo ships shouldn't possess. Their hulls shimmered as military-grade shields activated. These were warships. Disguised as traders for 40 years. Impossible, whispered Vex. How did you? 40 years of trade, Sarah said. 40 years of moving through your territories, mapping your positions, studying your tactics. 40 years of building ships in secret while you all thought we were just merchants. Her voice hardened. You should have taken the warning, Commander. Vex recovered quickly. 20 ships against 300? You're still vastly outnumbered. Surrender now and we'll be merciful. We're not alone, Sarah said simply. Space lit up with new arrivals. Ships emerged from hyperspace by the hundreds. Not human ships. These belonged to dozens of different species. The Bendari sent their fleet. The Triloxians contributed vessels. The Crystal and Myrn brought their ancient dreadnoughts. Even small civilizations that the Valorians had dismissed sent what ships they could. Every species that had ever traded fairly with humans had come to fight beside them. Total count, Vex demanded, his voice shaking. 800 ships, Commander, his tactical officer reported. And more arriving every minute. Vex stared at the tactical display. How had the humans organized this? How had they kept it secret? How had they convinced so many species to risk war with the Valerian Empire? The answer was simple, he realized. Trust. 40 years of fair dealing, honest trade, and kept promises had built something the Valorians never could, genuine alliances based on respect rather than fear. Commander, Sarah's voice came over the channel one last time. You have 1 hour to withdraw your ships from the outer routes. If you refuse, we will remove them by force. These routes belong to everyone. Not to you. Vex looked at his officers, at their frightened faces. He thought about his empire, his reputation, his pride. Then he thought about 800 warships and the fact that more were still arriving. For the first time in his military career, High Commander Vex gave an order he never imagined he would give. All ships, stand down. Prepare to withdraw. The price of underestimation. The retreat that changed everything. The withdrawal of the Valerian fleet was not quick or graceful. 300 warships retreating from the outer routes created chaos. Some captains refused to believe the order. Others wanted to fight despite the odds. It took High Commander Vex 3 hours to organize a full retreat, and during those 3 hours, the combined fleet of humans and their allies simply waited. They didn't threaten. They didn't attack. They just maintained their positions, a silent wall of force that said more than any words could. Ambassador Carries watched it all from the observation deck of the bazaar. He felt something he rarely experienced, admiration mixed with fear. The humans had deceived the entire galaxy. Not with lies, but with patience. They had let everyone assume they were weak while building strength in plain sight. How did we not see it? Vex asked beside him, voice filled with confusion. 40 years. How did nobody notice? We saw what we expected to see, Carries replied. Merchants trading. Cargo ships moving goods. We never looked deeper because we had no reason to. He shook his head slowly. The humans understood something fundamental. In a galaxy full of warriors, nobody pays attention to the merchant. When the Valerian fleet finally cleared the routes, Sarah Kim's voice came over open channels. The outer routes are now under the protection of the Free Trade Coalition. All species may use them without tax, without restriction, without fear. This is how it should have been. This is how it will remain. The message was broadcast to every corner of known space. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Species that had been forced to pay Valerian taxes celebrated. Civilizations that had feared expansion saw new hope. And everywhere, people asked the same question: who were the humans, really? The truth revealed. A week after the standoff, Sarah Kim agreed to speak at the Merchant Guild Council. The chamber was packed. Every species wanted to hear her explanation. She stood at the central podium, looking calm despite hundreds of eyes watching her. I know you have questions, she began. I'll do my best to answer them. Councillor Mern spoke first. Ambassador Kim, for 40 years, humanity presented itself as a peaceful merchant species. Was that a lie? No, Sarah said firmly. We are merchants. We love trade. We believe in fair commerce. Everything you saw was genuine. She paused. But we're also pragmatic. We learned early that this galaxy doesn't respect weakness. So we made sure we weren't weak. Those warships, said another counselor. Where did you build them? How did you hide them? Sarah smiled slightly. We didn't hide them. They were in plain sight the entire time. Every cargo ship you saw was built with a dual purpose. We could carry goods or we could carry weapons. The transformation takes less than a minute. Murmurs filled the chamber. It was brilliant and terrifying. The humans had created a merchant fleet that could become a battle fleet instantly. And the alliances? Carries asked. How did you convince so many species to fight for you? We didn't ask them to fight for us, Sarah explained. We asked them to fight for themselves, for the principle that no single power should control trade routes everyone depends on. The Bendari agreed because we've traded fairly with them for decades. The Triloxians joined because we helped them during their famine. The Mern supported us because we've always respected their ancient rights. She looked around the chamber. Every species in that fleet owes humanity nothing except trust. We built relationships over 40 years, one fair trade at a time. When we needed help, they came because they knew we would come for them too. High Commander Vex, who had been forced to attend the session, stood abruptly. You manipulated us all. You played weak while gathering power. That's deception of the highest order. Sarah met his gaze without flinching. We prepared for the possibility of conflict while hoping it would never come. Is that manipulation? Or is it wisdom? She gestured to the chamber. Every species here has military forces. Some hidden, some open. We simply chose a method that fit our nature as traders. And now? Vex demanded. What do you want? You have military power. You have alliances. What's your real goal? The same goal we've always had, Sarah said simply. To trade. To prosper. To live in a galaxy where commerce flows freely and no one power can dominate everyone else. She looked at him seriously. We don't want to conquer, Commander. We want to prevent others from conquering. That's the difference between us and you. The New Order. In the months that followed, the galaxy adapted to new realities. The Free Trade Coalition became a recognized political entity, not a government but a defensive alliance dedicated to protecting neutral space and free commerce. Dozens of species joined, not out of fear, but because they genuinely believed in the principles it represented. The Valerian Empire struggled with its humiliation. Some factions wanted revenge. Others argued for acceptance of the new order. Internal conflicts weakened them, and their influence began to decline. Human merchants continued trading as they always had, but now other species looked at them differently. Respect replaced condescension. Partnership replaced exploitation. The galaxy had learned that the quiet ones, the patient ones, the ones who seemed to want nothing but profit, could be the most formidable when pushed. Ambassador Carries requested a private meeting with Sarah Kim. They met in a small cafe in the bazaar, far from the formal council chambers. "I've been thinking about something you said," Carries began. "About preparation. How long have you been planning this?" Sarah sipped her tea, a human beverage that was becoming popular throughout the galaxy. "Since before we reached the stars. Earth has a long history of underestimation. Small nations ignored by large empires. Merchant cities that survived by being too useful to destroy. We learned our lessons early. So when humanity reached space, we knew exactly what we were walking into," Sarah finished. "A galaxy full of species who measure worth by military strength. We could have tried to compete directly, building a war fleet and claiming territory. But that would have made us a target." She smiled. "Better to be useful. Better to be trusted. Better to be everywhere at once as traders than nowhere in particular as conquerors." Carries leaned back. "It's a remarkable strategy. But it requires patience." "Humanity has learned patience," Sarah said. "We've learned that the longest road is sometimes the safest road. We spent 40 years building trust because we knew that trust would be worth more than any weapon. And now that you've revealed your strength?" Sarah's expression became serious. "Now we hope we never have to use it again. The standoff with the Valorians was necessary, but we took no joy in it. Every ship in that fleet represented years of resources we could have used for exploration, for research, for growth. War is expensive, even when you don't have to fight it." She finished her tea and stood. "We want what we've always wanted, Ambassador. A galaxy where different species can trade, share knowledge, and prosper together. The only difference now is that everyone knows we're willing to defend that vision." The lesson learned. Years passed. The Free Trade Coalition grew stronger. The Valerian Empire, humbled but not destroyed, eventually joined the coalition after internal reforms changed their government. Other aggressive powers saw what had happened and reconsidered their strategies. The galaxy didn't become peaceful overnight. Conflicts still arose. Species still competed and argued and sometimes fought. But the nature of galactic politics had shifted. Pure military might was no longer enough. Trust mattered. Relationships mattered. The ability to work together toward common goals mattered. Human merchants continued spreading across the stars, and now no one doubted what they were capable of. But more importantly, no one feared them. Because the humans had proven that strength used only for defense, power wielded only to protect the weak, was something the galaxy could accept. Ambassador Carries, now retired, sometimes visited Earth. He found it fascinating, a world where billions of humans lived ordinary lives, mostly unaware of how their species had changed galactic politics. They worked, raised families, created art, pursued dreams. Just like everyone else in the galaxy. On one visit, he asked Sarah Kim, who had also retired, a final question. "Do you think the galaxy has really learned the lesson? That military power alone doesn't create lasting security?" Sarah, now an old woman but still sharp, considered the question. "Some have learned. Others are still learning. A few will never learn." She smiled. "But enough species understand now that we've created something new. Not perfect, but better than what came before." She looked up at the sky where distant stars glittered. "My grandmother used to tell me a story from old Earth. About a merchant who was also a warrior, but who only drew his sword when absolutely necessary. The rest of the time, he did honest business, made friends, and built bridges between communities. What happened to him? Carries asked. He grew old, wealthy, and respected. His enemies became his trading partners. His weapons rusted from disuse. And when he finally died, people from 100 different places came to mourn him. Not because he had conquered them, but because he had enriched their lives. She looked at Carries. That's what humanity wants to be. The merchant who rarely needs to draw the sword. The trader who brings species together rather than driving them apart. The voice that says there's a better way than endless war. Carries nodded slowly. I think you're succeeding. Epilogue, the stars still shine. In the Grand Bazaar of Zentera Prime, human merchants continue their work. Ships arrive and depart. Goods change hands. Credits transfer between accounts. Deals are made, partnerships formed, friendships forged. To casual observers, nothing has changed. Humans still seem like simple merchants, focused on profit and trade. But those who look closer see something else. They see the careful watches maintained on neutral routes. The quick responses to threats against free commerce. The quiet strength that backs up every promise. The galaxy learned its lesson the hard way: never underestimate the merchant species. Behind every trade ship might be a warship. Behind every commercial agreement might be a military alliance. Behind every smile and handshake might be careful preparation for the day when strength must be shown. But more than that, the galaxy learned something better. That species can be strong without being cruel. That power can protect rather than dominate. That the greatest strength isn't in forcing others to submit, but in building something worth defending together. Humanity didn't conquer the stars. They traded their way across them. And in doing so, they changed what it meant to be powerful. The stars still shine above the bazaar. Ships still move between them, carrying goods and dreams and possibilities. And somewhere in that endless dance of commerce and culture, human merchants work quietly, patiently, building the future one fair trade at a time. Because that's what humans do. They prepare. They endure. They wait for the right moment. And when that moment comes, they show the galaxy that the quiet ones were never weak. They were just waiting.